Today we are going to practice adding decimal numbers. Here we go. First, let's talk quickly about the associative property of addition. The associative property simply means that I can change the grouping of the numbers that I am adding together. For example, I can go 5 plus 3 plus 2, and that will give me 10. And I'll get the 10 whether I add the 5 and the 3 together first to get 8 plus 2, or whether I add the 3 and the 2 together first to get 10. It doesn't matter how I group my numbers when I'm adding, the sum will be the same. So we're going to use this handy property of addition to help us make friendly numbers when we're adding decimals. That's one option we have when we're adding decimals. There are other strategies we can use, but here's a good one. Let's take, for example, 2 and 8/10 plus 5/10. Now, I want to make this easier for myself. I am going to use the associative property to make some friendlier numbers. So, 5/10 could have come from, say, 2/10 and 3/10. We know it was built by some smaller numbers. So if I just kind of use that idea when I'm adding it to 2 and 8/10, if I group it like that, I've automatically made a friendly number, because 2 and 8/10 plus 2 more tenths, that gives me 3. And if I can rethink this question in my head as 3 plus 3 more tenths, it's going to give me my answer, hopefully more quickly than if you were to just try to do this in your head another way. Another way you might want to do it is simply by doing partial sums. And we'll find the same answer, but we'll just look at it in a different way. I'm going to just build the sum in pieces. So I'll take my ones and I'll say, okay, altogether I have 2 ones. And then I'll look at my tenths and say, altogether I have 13/10, which looks like 1 and 3/10. And I'll just group those together. Okay, so these are just two strategies we can use to do addition mentally with decimal numbers in our heads. So for each question we encounter, you can use whichever strategy works best for you. Let's try some examples. I'll do both strategies for these questions. Okay, I see that 3.9 is very, very close to 4, so I would like to make it a 4. So I'm going to, in my head, break this down into 1 and 2/10 and plus 1 more tenth. And I'm going to take that tenth, and I'm going to give it here. So it's almost like I'm borrowing a number. I still have all the same amount of numbers together. It'll all end up being the same sum in the end, but I'm just going to share to make some more friendly numbers. So in my head I'm thinking, okay, 1 and 2/10 plus 4 is all the same amount, but that's just easier to deal with in my head. 5 and 2/10. Maybe you like the partial sum strategy better, so maybe you're thinking, okay, 1 and 3 is 4. 3/10 plus 9/10 gives me 12/10, which looks like this. And put it all together, I still get my 5 and 2/10 either way. Let's try this one. Okay, if I'm going to try to make some friendly numbers using the associative property, I'm going to take 2/10 from here, move it over here. So that gives me 1 plus 2 and 2/10, which is 3 and 2/10 for an answer. Maybe you wanted to do the partial sum strategy. So you've got, okay, 2 wholes, and then I've got 8/10 plus 4/10, which gives me 1 and 2/10, or 12/10, which of course gives me the same answer, 3.2, 3 and 2/10. Okay, here I'd like to make this a 4. So by making that a 4, I am taking 3/10 off of this one. So that becomes a 2 and 2/10, 6 and 2/10. If you wanted to do a partial sum method, I've got 5 ones, and I've got 12 tenths. 12 tenths looks like 1 and 2 tenths. Same answer, of course. And finally, if you're doing level B or C, you'll see some numbers that are in the hundredths. Same idea. I see this right here, 98 hundredths, as being very, very close to 1. So that's what I would like to do with my associative property. I'm going to make my second addend 1, and I'm going to do that by borrowing 2 hundredths from my first number, which brings it down to 1 and 11 tenths. Okay, so same amount of stuff being combined together as here. 2 and 11 hundredths. If you wanted to go the partial sum way, you could do it by going 1 and 0, 1. So I've got 1 whole together here. 9 tenths plus 1 more tenth. That gives me 10 tenths, which is 1. Maybe you wanted to write it like that, same amount. And then I've got 3 hundredths and 8 hundredths, which gives me 11 hundredths. Put that all together, and I've got 2 and 11 hundredths. Same answer. Okay, now it's your turn. Try these questions on your own, and then come back and check your answers. Okay, using my associative property, I can change this into 3 and 7 tenths plus 1, which gives me 4 and 7 tenths. Maybe you just went 3 plus 1 and 7 tenths. Either way, same answer. Here, I'd like to bring this down to 2, so I'm going to give this 1 tenth over here, and I'm going to be thinking 2 plus 3 and 7 tenths, which would give me 5 and 7 tenths. Here, this would be a good one to do grouping with. So I've got 4 whole numbers, and then with my 7 tenths and 7 tenths, I've got 14 tenths, which looks like this. Put them together, 5 and 4 tenths. Here's a good one for the associative property. I'd like to give this hundredth over here so I can have a nice whole number, nice friendly number here. So that means I've got 1 and 23 hundredths plus 3, which gives me 4 and 23 hundredths.